Hey, it's Josh from There's No Business Like podcast. I can't wait to see you in Indianapolis at MAX, the Midwest Arts Expo. Come and see us at booth 512 and see us all around throughout the conference. We'll be at showcases, we'll be involved with PD. You can come and find us, talk to us, tell us what you'd like to hear more about on the podcast. We'll also be recording in our booth. Once again, our booth number is 512 at MAX in Indianapolis. We hope to see you there.
Hello and welcome to There's No Business Like, a podcast where friends and industry colleagues explore topics and interview leaders in our industry of professional theatrical touring. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to There's No Business Like. I'm here with my friends, Brian
Zelmer from KU Presents in Kutztown, Pennsylvania.
Kevin
Maynard, Quad City Arts, splitting the border between Iowa and Illinois.
Josh.
Hey, Josh Benson from Marion, Illinois.
And Katie.
Hi, Katie Miller, coming to you from Midland, Michigan.
And you got any news?
I might have a piece of news to share with all of our friends today.
I'd love to hear it.
Okay. Well, some of you might already know, but I don't think everyone knows that actually in June, I left the Midland Center for the Arts for the opportunity to serve my city and region at the Midland Area Community Foundation. So after 14 years as an arts administrator, I have a little bit of burnout. And also, while I absolutely loved how important my work was at the center, it's also been a lot. Like the center has been through a lot with the pandemic and flooding and leadership changes and coming back from all of that. And it was just time for a little bit of a change and a little bit of a breather. So I'm going to serve my community in a different way moving forward and actually go back to my philanthropy roots in doing community impact work and admin at the Midland Area Community Foundation for a while. So I am staying with podcasts, of course, because who could, walk away from these four yahoos? But I am proud to announce I'm also launching my own consulting firm, Michigan Maven Creative Associates. So my intention is, at least initially, to work with small and mid-sized arts organizations and bring my belief in the power of mission and value-driven arts administration to help organizations really focus on joyfully serving and creating community with patrons, partners, and employees alike. So I really am excited for this journey. I appreciate the support of my team here in starting out this endeavor. And if you're at all interested or want to check it out, you can check out my website at michiganmaven.art.
Oh, Katie, I'm having some problem with my ears. I didn't hear you say the website. Could you say it again for us?
It is michiganmaven.art.
.art. She said .art, not .com. And I love that. I think that's awesome.
Well, Katie, you know this. We are so proud of you. We can't wait to see the amazing work that you are just getting started into.
So, well, I'm excited to get started and to bring kind of my expertise in community engagement and youth and family programming and accessible programming to those that might need just like a fresh set of eyes and some fresh perspective. So thanks again, everyone, for supporting me in this. And yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah. And I have some other great news. I hosted the episode this week. Anywho, something that is very loosely related to this episode, I would like to ask you about. Has your hometown or maybe a adopted hometown ever written an article about you? Has there ever been any media written about you?
I mean, my name's been in the newspaper and in radio and stuff a lot, having managed venues in the past. I do particularly, though, remember when I was appointed the managing director of the Playhouse at White Lake, some very unfortunate internet comments that were made calling me unqualified and saying that I only got my job because I was a woman. So that was cool.
That wasn't cool. I don't like that.
No, that's awful.
All right, Kevin, what you got?
There's quite a few I've got. I once had a political cartoon that included me because of some things that happened at a festival that we host. I also had an article that was written about my wife and I that was involved like right before we got married that ended up being less about a relationship and more about a sandwich I was eating. And, when I became an older person, I got that article and then, the comment section about, probably bribery and those sort of things. So, yeah, it's like all good things.
Mine are all pretty boring. I mean, there were a number of articles during the process of kicking off our mural district. There was an article whenever I first took over the center as a director. All pretty boring stuff because I live a boring life.
That's not true. You don't live a boring life.
Yeah, but nobody writes articles about getting hit by a car on a scooter.
Correct.
No, they just
We only
record
talk about
podcasts about
They
them.
should.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like Josh when it comes to the media. I've had a lot of articles about me too, every time I started a new position and so forth, especially. But before I came to my first presenter job, I was working in a marketing agency, and I had to write press releases all the time. And one of my first things I had to do in my presenter role was write the press release about myself joining the organization.
I had to do that too.
But it was boring and dry. Like, I don't know.
I actually remember an article that I saw about Danielle about her winning an award
Oh my God.
in the last year, being recognized for her work as an outstanding woman in Fairfax County government.
Congrats.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. So back in the pandemic, when we were doing our drive-through drama program, I think that there wasn't a whole lot of arts and culture news going on out there. So there was like a point where we got like several solicitations in like a week or two from American Theater Magazine and like our local NBC and CBS affiliates and stuff like that, where they wanted like interview requests or they were like writing articles about it. And that was a very new experience for me. And was totally, it was just totally strange. But, you know, like in my hometown, I don't think has ever been like, oh, look at her. She did some things. But anywho, we could get sidetracked here real fast, but I don't want to, because what I want is for you to listen to the interview I did this week with Stephanie Mayers. She is the owner of Mayers Consulting, and she primarily does publicity and artist booking work. We dig in a lot into the music industry and what it is like to be a publicist.
My name is Stephanie Mayers. I am a publicist, booking agent, manager with Mayers Consulting, which is my own company. I'm a mother of three, if you count my fluffy one, deadhead, coffee lover, wine lover, food lover, life lover.
Oh. So I do want to talk a lot about the business, but first, I'd love it if we could go back in time and just tell us about you and your origin story.
My pivotal point was, I went to college in the University of Pittsburgh, undeclared, had no idea what I wanted to be. When I was a child, I think I went through astronaut, children's book illustrator, marine biologist, none of which stuck. So cut to my sophomore year of college, I'm still undecided, and met with the school, guidance counselor, and they asked what I was passionate about. And I said music, because I've been a music head my whole life. My father introduced us to so much music, really kind of found my space and my passion. And so they were like, well, you should figure out a way to make your passion your career, so you really love what you're doing with your life. And I was like, well, that's loaded and not specific. So they actually helped me find an internship with the local radio station in Pittsburgh, where I helped the promotions team for the classic rock station and the alternative station. But anyway, it was interesting for me because I was like, okay, so that's how this works, on a very commercial level. And then I decided I wanted to travel abroad. So I spent a semester in London. The program I was on got me an internship in music promotions with a real promotions company in London, Wild Promotions. And I got to actually do the real PR work. And we worked with college radio, college newspapers. So we would invite people to shows, and then they would come to the shows and review the shows. And I was like, oh, I made that happen. I was the point in between. And it was really kind of invigorating and exciting. And I was like, oh, I dig this. I can get into this. And this is, I have no musical skills. I'm just a fan, but this is a way I could be in the industry, be functional, use what I'm capable of. So those were my college internships.
So what did you end up getting your major in?
Oh, I formed my own major. They had an interdisciplinary communications option. So it was communications, public relations, writing, and then I had a full minor in studio arts.
Wow. So yeah, I mean, that really is shaped from that experience of really being in the industry. Like internships are just such to really be able to narrow down or just totally eliminate things that you do or don't want to do.
It really, really pointed me in the direction and showed me, what real jobs are in that. You hear about jobs, but you don't, and I did all my crappy summer jobs when I was a kid. I worked in a coffee shop. I worked at Victoria's Secret for a month. I interned in a law office, getting paper cuts, and I did all the, stupid kid jobs. Coffee shop is the one I could go back to. Doing these internships really showed me like, oh, okay, this is real life. I could do this. This could be fun.
So fast forward to Philadelphia.
So Philadelphia, I'm working at the gallery, which is cool, but obviously not my passion, just, my first job. I met the owner of World Cafe Live, Hal Reel, who was in the process of building that venue. We just hit it off, and I told him all about me, and I followed up with him. And ultimately he hired me as his first employee for World Cafe Live before the venue opened. We were literally working out of a 2-bedroom apartment next door to the construction site. I was giving hard hat tours. I was there as every person was hired. It was nice. He believed in me and he understood where I was coming from. So it was really cool. Once we finally opened, I folded into a marketing and PR position where I supported the marketing director. I did publicity. I was brand new at it. I was really learning as I went. It was a smaller market and, it was same venue, same contacts, because it was regional. So I could only go so far. So it was good because I kind of had a narrow place to pitch it to. But that was really my first job in the music industry. And it was a lot of fun. It was crazy. We were brand new. We had no idea what we were doing. Lots of mistakes. Lots of things went down. That was where I fell into the family music scene. Because we were a venue, it was a venue that shared the building with the radio station, with WXPN in Philadelphia. So it was two-sided. They wanted to have programming 7 days a week. So the idea was, how do we get families in here? And if we get the families in here, then the parents will experience the venue and they'll want to come back for shows, for adult shows. So we just started booking family shows on Saturday mornings with local people, someone who was playing guitar at the local library, this and that. We called the series Peanut Butter and Jams.
Adorable.
It was so adorable. And it totally blew up. It was at an amazing moment. It was 2004, 2005. So the modern family music scene was really just getting going. Dan Zanes had released his, first album or two. I started doing research beyond the local people, and I found Brady Reimer, Christopher Yellowgold, Dan Zanes, Justin Roberts. So I started inviting these people in to play this series. It was really fantastic. We won the Best of Philly in 2005 for the series.
That's
I absolutely
amazing.
Loved going to work on Saturdays, just seeing those little kids bopping around. And it was so much cleaner and nicer than the late nights at the venue for adult shows. The kids' stuff was so pure and lovely. Plus, it was like discovering this whole new genre that was developing. And I really fell in love with that.
I'm curious what you said too about inviting the families in so that the parents wanted to come back and see a show. This is so far back, but do you remember, did that work? Did that end up being a strategy? Because it sounds it's something that I think a lot of us do. But data tracking on things like that is really hard. Do you have a sense of if that was...
I couldn't say for sure, but it definitely felt like, maybe they hadn't been to the venue yet. Oh, but they found this new thing for their kids. So they came in with their kids to do the Saturday morning thing. And it was like a whole, we started it. There's two venues there. There was the small upstairs and then the bigger downstairs. We started it in the small upstairs, ultimately wound up taking over the downstairs. They would do a buffet that you could buy into with mac and cheese and chicken nuggets and pizza. The bar was open for parents. So it became like this comfort, easy place, trusted, with really great music. So there was trust factor there. And then the calendar of events, was all over the venue, even in the bathroom stalls, So I think the parents were then like, oh, Stephen Merritt's playing here, in 2 weeks, we should, come back for that. So I do think it gave another element of trust and comfort, to invite people back. We also, when we were first opening, because we didn't really have a place in the scene, especially with families, we came up with the concept of partnering with different family businesses in the region or family-friendly businesses. So 1 week was sponsored by the Please Touch Museum. Another week was sponsored by, this place. So we were at their places, our postcards were there and they were at ours. And it was a great kind of cross promotion for the family scene in town at the time. So in 2006, I was still working at the venue and I gave a hard hat tour. I used to give hard hat tours of the venue because I knew all the stats. To Dan Storper, who was the president and founder of Putumayo World Music. And they have a kids division to the label, Putumayo Kids. And he was telling me all about the work that they were doing, putting out family albums with world music, but all different kinds of music, artists from all over. He was very impressed with my knowledge and all, the bands I was familiar with, and offered me a job. My husband and I decided to leave Philadelphia and move to New York City.
That's a big step.
It was a huge step. I was terrified. I was never a fan of New York. I didn't ever think I would want to live there or work there. But again, I was kind of aware of the limitations in Philadelphia, especially if I was going to be focused in the children's entertainment space. I really wasn't sure how far that could go there. And this was going to give me the opportunity to travel around the world and work with all different kinds of artists. It was a fantastic move. It was a tough job, but I loved it. And I grew a lot there. They gave me a lot of responsibility. I was promoted multiple times. By the time I left Putumayo, I was head of promotions and events for all of North America, not just kids.
Holy cow.
Then 2010, I think, I left to go work for Dan Zanes, Grammy-winning Dan Zanes, who is, if you don't know, is kind of like the Bob Dylan of the family music scene.
Does he have, is that his tagline? If not,
it's not.
I think you should talk to him about that.
I know. I should. He was in my orbit. He was kind of the star of the scene. I was very enamored by him. I had seen him at Global Fest. I used to go to APAP this is my APAP connection. So Putumayo would send me to APAP to walk the floor, see what everybody was doing, check out the artists. Because I would do booking for the Putumayo artists. We would pick an artist to, promote each album, and we would try to tour with them. But I would always stop by Pomegranate Arts because they worked with Dan Zanes, and I would always stop in and say hi to Linda and Lisa, and tell them about what I was doing. But I was also running a family music conference by this point. And I was always sharing and kind of just giving them updates on me and asking about Dan, just because I was so interested. So in 2010, I believe it was Linda that reached out to me, and she said, Dan Zanes is looking for a general manager to run his label. And I was like, wow. It was kind of like getting called by the best possible job you could get called for at that point in life. So I went for the interview. They hired me on the spot. I was the only person they interviewed. And I left Putumayo to go work for Dan Zanes, which was kind of my ultimate job in this world. Working with Dan was fantastic, and I learned so much. I always say it was like I got my master's in Dan Zanes. He was just such a wonderful teacher, and he was patient, opened my eyes up to things that I hadn't really thought about before. It was just fun, and it was exactly my
great time.
It was exactly my genre, exactly my interest, exactly where I wanted to be. And it was cool. So I was working in Brooklyn with Dan for 5 years, from 2010 to 2015.
All right. So now that we've caught up kind of to the present, so what is it that your agency or your business does?
I, had been helping artists a little bit along the way on the side. And as I mentioned before, there was a conference called Kindy Fest that I was co-creator and executive producer of, which was like a South by Southwest for the family music scene. And it was fantastic. We did it for many years in Brooklyn, and people from all over came, and we had panels and showcases. And it was it was really the beginning of, I think, the family music community and how it became a community. People finding each other, starting to collaborate. It was really groundbreaking in that. Bill Childs was the main person I worked with on that. But so with the Kindy Fest connections and with all of that, I had my second daughter in 2015, and I was like, I just really don't want to be commuting to Brooklyn anymore. So for a while I was like, I'm just going to work full time at home. That was before that was really the thing to do. And it went okay for a while, but I think eventually they really wanted somebody there in the office. So I basically said, how about this? You hire somebody else to do everything but PR, and you stay with me, and I'll be your publicist. That I launched Mayors Consulting with Dan Zanes as my first client. So ultimately I started Mayors Consulting to do PR, to be another family music publicist out there in the scene. There were just a couple others out there. More and more bands are being, coming out every day, and there was just limited options for them in terms of PR. Because I had so many connections and I had been in the community for so long, I was starting to do booking for people indirectly. And I decided to add that as a component officially a couple of years in. So I have an official booking roster of artists that I specifically book for. My PR roster mainly is around people releasing albums, so that rotates. So I have returning clients, ongoing clients, and then new projects that come up all the time.
So how does it work? Do people come to you for the publicity side of your business and then kind of fall onto the roster? Or are they looking for representation? In an ideal world, would you want to have somebody as a publicity client that you were also booking? Is it okay to just be separate?
It's okay to just be separate. I do both. Some people I do their booking and PR. Some people I just do their PR. I guess it's conditional on just what's happening, what the person needs, what my interests are, what my capacity is. If I have something too similar on my booking roster, I try to not overlap too much in my offerings. I really love the idea that if a venue wanted to book their whole summer series with my roster, they could book everybody and it would be completely eclectic and different.
And I think that too is sort of where you and I met. I was trying to think about it this morning and I can't exactly remember, but I think it was at my first APAP in this role, or one of them, that I stumbled upon your showcase, just seeing band after band after band of just incredible family musicians. That wasn't the genre that I really came from, and I was learning so much about it. Like, you've been a huge resource for me of getting to know who's out there in the family music space, and I'm super grateful for that. And I did want to take a step back and talk a little bit more about the publicity side of the work that you do. And you're actually the first publicist we've had on this podcast. Publicists are a huge part of our industry that I think we don't see. And so I was just hoping that you could give us a little bit of a 101 on, like, what is it that a publicist does?
What is the publicist? Well, we're not meant to be seen. That's part one. We're meant to be hidden and behind the scenes. What does a publicist do? Well, an artist spends so long creating their, whatever it is they're creating, their album, their art, their release. And at a certain point, they're done and they need to hand it over to somebody to help get it out into the world and to get people to know about it. And that's where I step in. So I help craft the messaging and find the story within the project, take it out into the world, ideally to people that will get it and want to help us share it, whether it's airplay on children's, radio shows or interviews, radio interviews, magazines, print. There's family outlets, there's music outlets. Depending on the theme of their project, there could be, niche places. I always really try to find as many paths to go down with each project, depending on the themes of the project. And even song by song, if there's a specific song that has a story that might fit somewhere, really try to break it down into as many possible places as I can. And truth be told, family music publicity is challenging. There are not a whole lot of outlets that specifically cover that. I would have said that 5 years ago and meant it, but now I'm saying it and I mean it, with earnest. There's so many outlets have closed or just stopped covering kids' music altogether. It's quite limited in family music coverage. There are really barely any outlets left that will review your album. My challenge is that I have to be incredibly thoughtful and careful in the projects I take on.
Can you tell us a little bit about, what does the agreement between you and the artist look like?
I basically have the exact conversation I just had with you about, the landscape and what's out there. And, I'll have my concept of where I think I can take it and what I'd like to do with it. It's a flat monthly retainer, whatever it is, for whatever amount of time we've agreed to. And it's kind of what comes back. Sometimes it works great. Sometimes it falls completely flat, which is an awful thing for me. It makes me feel pretty horrible when it just doesn't land for whatever reason. It could have nothing to do with the album. It could be just what's happening in the world, when we release the album, or, something else huge is happening at the same time, or you really never know, which is a very hard part with PR.
If an artist is sort of at the beginning of their career, working on their first album, maybe second, what kind of advice do you give them if they're considering seeking a publicist, but they're not quite sure that they're at that stage or that they have kind of the funding available yet? Are there things they can do on their own?
Yeah, I'd say there's things they can do on their own. I mean, you should really have yourself buttoned up. You want to make sure you have a place where people can find you clearly and find, the information that they're looking for. Get all your socials up and coordinated and branded, have a website, have everything very accessible. work with a good solid distributor for your music so that you know it's going up to all the platforms and being delivered properly. Regionally, absolutely, reach out to your local media, try to get a story on yourself, in your hometown about your project. I'd say that's the lowest hanging fruit for an artist, is to really try to get local coverage. And with a little bit of research on your own, you could pretty much find the family music radio stations out there and submit your music. Most of them are very agreeable to hearing directly from artists. Get yourself some airplay and let families start to hear your stuff. Just like every genre of music, people are creating at various levels and they're making their marketing pieces at various levels. Some people put out beautiful cover art and photos and supporting assets. I do think that the visuals matter and that your support matters. I do think people might take you more seriously, if your product looks more professional.
We talk about that a lot on the touring side of things as well. That, the assets that any artist has, at that point, they're kind of selling business to business. A little bit of like, I have this product and I want you to help me, and here are the visuals and sort of the copy that I'm working with to kind of get your attention. But then you're also kind of taking those same things, sort of rethinking about it for like a wider public audience or for a presenter audience, to try and like book the shows. So I can definitely see how all of that kind of works together. Do you help the artists get updated photos or better copy or better graphics?
Yeah, I'll request that. Well, it also depends at what point people come to me. Sometimes they're like, here's the whole thing. I've spent, the last 2 years working on this and I'm releasing in 2 months and I need a publicist. And I'm like, really? You spent the last 2 years working on all of this and you have a release date all set and you're just starting to look for a publicist right now? Reach out to me early, hold me in, ask my opinion if you want it. I'm happy to weigh in and give you my 2 cents, whether or not you want to use it. It surprises me the level to which people will put into their work, but not reach out to a publicist till the very end. I have my release schedule set through the start of next year. Going back though, rewind for a minute, when you're asking if there's anything artists can do, I get a lot of how come them, not me with artists. There's people that are where you want to see yourself. There's artists that are operating at a level that you want to be at. Take a really good look at what they're doing and how they're doing it. Look at their material, look at their assets, look at how they're presenting themselves, look at their socials, their frequency there, and learn something from that.
I mean, there is just so much in every market now at this point. There's so many different ways to get music. The side of the business that you do is super important and I think under-known about. I don't think that's a word, but I'm going to stick with it. Less known.
Right. Absolutely.
I wanted to go back to the beginning when you were talking about really finding family music by just seeing the kids in the space and just the joy and like the happiness of kids singing and clapping along and dancing. And that's definitely something that both of us have in common. I think the more I do this job and the more that I see different kids and my kids, especially reacting to shows that I really love, like just the deeper I fall into it. And I hope I didn't set you up, but I wanted to ask you what you love most about working in family music today.
Well, I feel very dedicated to the genre and almost like I have a responsibility to the genre at this point because I've been part of it for so long now. It's been 20 years. I still feel like kids' music does not get the respect that it deserves. Children's literature, movies, television, podcasts now, even so much attention, so much coverage, respect. For whatever reason, kids' music still gets this bastard stepchild, reputation, and it pisses me off. And it's been my mission this whole time to try to remove that and try to get mainstream outlets to cover family music regularly, to give it the respect it deserves. We've had a lot of ups and downs and waves of support and then not over the years. It's really frustrating. And it's really frustrating when the stuff that does get coverage is not what I'm trying to help. I'm trying to help independent artists who are writing music from the heart and who are telling their stories and writing music for their families that, fits for everyone, or seeing greater missions and trying to help children, through various things. So when something that's obviously just very commercial and being produced for mass production that is owned by companies that have a lot of marketing power and pull, so that they're the things that you find when you type in family music or kids music. That's really frustrating. I've made it almost my life's mission now to really try to break those barriers and get the respect that we deserve. And I think we've had a lot of success and a lot of breakthroughs, not to the point that I'd like to. I'd love all the outlets to just have a regular family music section. Many of these writers are dads and moms and, uncles and aunts. You can write about, the cool family music album that you discovered, because people are looking for that information.
Yeah, we need it.
It's okay. It's not uncool. One of the largest music outlets who covers every genre under the sun and, makes their reputation on being very cool about that, still won't touch family music. If I want to get covered by that outlet, I have to go to an outside writer outside the music section. And even so, there's only one writer who's allowed to write about it. It's really frustrating.
That's incredible. That amount of gatekeeping. Off the top of my head, at least I can't think of any other genre that's defined by the age of the intended listener. And I do always wonder, because what falls under family music is so different. Is there a need for there to just be multiple genres of it? Or is there almost too much under the umbrella for people to understand? Or are we not being able to see some part of it because, there's 5 or 6 really shining stars at the moment, and because we're all under the same umbrella, then a lot of it just kind of gets missed? And we've talked a lot about the Grammys. And, especially when we're doing awards and categories and things like that, where, there's 5 nominees, and how do you even come up with, everybody's going to have
music category.
Right. And it's you look at the music, and the music is totally different.
Sure. I think in general, the genres do exist within the children's music scene. There's preschool music, there's, kids music, there's family music, there's Spanish language music, there's folk music, there's, hip hop, there's jazz, there's really every genre that exists within the children's music. So I think if you know what you're looking for, you can find it. If you say kids music to someone, either they think Cocomelon and Baby Shark, or if they know about other artists, they might say Laurie Berkner or the Okie Dokie Brothers, Dan Zanes, Liz Mitchell. It depends what kind of lifestyle you're living. Are we talking to an NPR listener or to someone from middle America who's listening to, commercial radio? I think it really depends of where you're consuming and what your bubble is, what you're reading, how you're finding things out, which it does with everybody about, your discoveries. When it comes to the Grammys for genre, though, of course, that's super frustrating because there's a whole world of children's music and we're limited to one category, one prize, best children's music album. They tried to get even a best children's song of the year added a few years ago. There was a huge petition and that wasn't accepted. There is the Latin Grammys. So there is a best Latin children's album, which is one additional thing that exists for some people. Yeah. Otherwise it's very competitive. And I will say that the kids community, when it comes down to Grammy time, are competitive and ruthless. I have been very, very lucky to have worked on multiple Grammy nominated and winning albums. It's just been luck, I think, because I pick the projects that I think are really, really strong and have something going on. So I've been very lucky to be a part of those. And, heck, I'll put on a dress and go to the Grammys and, see all the famous people. And it's fun. I have a blast doing it. But I know, people very often call me up just winning a Grammy campaign. I say, no, that's not what I do. Grammy campaign is trying to get votes from, fellow voters. I'm not even a voting member. I'm a professional member of the Academy. But, voting is fine, having lists of voters and doing all this campaigning. And that is not what I do at all. When I offer someone a Grammy campaign, that's, hey, I worked on your album already. It did really well. You got nominated. Let's do a victory lap and try to get more press, now that it's nominated. That is the only thing that I can do, for you and your Grammy, and walk you down the carpet and try to get you, interviews and It's super fun, the Grammys, yes, but people put way too much stake in it. And they really feel like if you get the Grammy, it's going to change your whole life. And I know a lot of people have won the Children's Grammy and it hasn't changed their lives drastically whatsoever. I think it's who you are, what you're doing, what your plans are to do with it. But it is not going to open you up to all the bookings and all the coverage and everything you've ever wanted. It's just not how it works.
Yeah, it's really too bad because
cool.
it should. I mean, because like I'm continually impressed by the amazing work that artists in this space make and like how consistent it is and just like what incredible people they are. And, like every family artist we have come through the door is just the kindest soul that you can ever imagine. What's the difference between a professional member and a voting member?
Voting member can vote on the Grammy ballot. Professional member just means I'm a member of the Academy, and I get invited to events, and I get to participate in certain things. But I don't get to vote when it comes down to ballot time.
And
I can
is that
attend the
from
Grammys.
is that your choice?
No, I think it's my profession.
Oh,
I think it's artists and creators are the voters, which I have no beef with.
No, because I mean, I've heard different things about Grammy voters, and I mean, it is super significant, right? Everybody wants to be able to say like Grammy nominated or
Sure.
Grammy award winner, but that process just seems so mysterious. And with mystery, I think a lot of times comes inequity.
Yeah, I think it's just very incestuous. I vote for yours, you vote for mine.
Yeah,
it's sticky. People get really weird and crafty when it comes time for the Grammys, which is why I'm, like I said, I sit way back and I let whatever happens, and I do my standard PR work. And if it, works out in my artist's favor, yay.
So I feel like I could talk to you all day. And I know at some point we do have to say goodbye or maybe see you later. But before we go, I just wanted to ask you if we could go on just a little trip back in time to when you were like thinking about breaking away and starting your own publicity firm. What do you know now that you wish you knew then? Or is there any advice that you would love to give 20 years ago, Stephanie?
I was going to write them down before we started this because I knew it would come down to this, but I do have like some pillars that I have developed that are very important to me now through experience that have led me to this knowledge that would have been helpful to know then. There was 3 and now there's 4. I just recently added a new one. It never hurts to ask. No one's ever going to just hand you the thing that you are wanting inside your head. You have to put it out there. You have to say it out loud, whether it's me chasing down Hal Reel to be hired as his first employee for the venue. There's maybe, very often projects come to me, but sometimes I hear about something in development that I'm like, oh, I have to work on that. Put yourself out there. The worst somebody can say is no. Speaking of no, the power of no. I used to take on things that I was unsure about, or that maybe I didn't get the right, energy from. No is a really great thing. And if someone comes to me with something and I start thinking about it and envisioning myself doing it and I get all anxious about it and then I realize I don't think it's right. And I say no, and then it all dissolves and goes away and disappears. So I think knowing your limits and what's right for you is really important. Not getting guilted into anything is why no is very powerful. And in vain with that, I also always say, go with your gut. I feel like very often my mind and my body are telling me almost immediately if something is a yes or a no. I think it's really important to go with what you know, trust yourself, don't second guess it too much, really just kind of go with your gut. Young people, especially women, we're pleasers. We want to make people happy. I think making yourself happy is the most important thing. If that's, an option for you to be in your consideration, it should be. And my newest thing is realizing that you need to leave space for what's possible, leave space for opportunity. I was talking about this with a client of mine, Pierce Freelon, recently, and he said that his grandmother used to say that, I forget the exact wording, but it was basically, you can't accept a gift with full hands, which I thought was a nicer way to put it.
Wow.
I think it might have been worded a little different, but I thought that was a really lovely sentiment. On the no thing, Pierce always says, I think it was also his grandmother would say that no is a love word.
Mm.
which I really love too. So he's good. He's beautiful. He's got a beautiful family. They know what they're doing. But yes, all of those things are the things that I have really learned about what helps me function and what I need, and to operate better professionally and personally.
That last one, to leave space, was like sort of my unofficial resolution for this year. Things happen and things come up, and sometimes they're amazing. You almost in a way you want to plan for it, right? You want to know good things are coming your way. I love ending on that. No.
Yeah. And case, and it happened for me recently. You know, I have spring and summer are really busy times for me. That's when most people release. And I look at my schedule and I'm like, oh man, this is pretty tight. You know, how am I going to pull this off with all these people? And then I get a phone call about something amazing that I absolutely have to say yes to. And, you know, you just got to make it work. So, you know, don't have it already busting at the seams before then for no real good reason. But now, you know, because of my experience and the time I've put in, I have the luxury of being able to be more strategic and specific about what I take on because I want to enjoy it.
Well, thanks so much for sitting down with me today and sharing all of your passion and your expertise in the family music space. I always learn a ton by talking with you, and I hope I get to see you soon.
Thank you so much for having me and for asking me to be here and for caring.
Always.
There's No Business Like podcast is excited to tell you that we will be at the Western Arts Alliance. Come and see us at WA in San Diego. While we're there, we're going to be working with the Western Arts Alliance and creating content, talking about what's happening at the conference, talking through the different PD sessions, talking through some of the topics that have been addressed. We are going to be checking in on the juried showcases. We're going to be talking to attendees. We will be populating WA social media with content, keeping you up to date on everything that's happening at the conference. So we look forward to seeing you in San Diego. Check us out on WA's Instagram and Facebook throughout the conference.
Well, Danielle, I really enjoyed your interview, but I have some really great news for you. Turns out, underknown is an actual word. I was fully prepared to come in here and just make fun of you for making up your own word, and then I
that's why he looked it up. That's hilarious. He's trying to catch
foiled
me.
again.
Okay, so it's a word, but does it mean what I wanted it to mean?
Yes,
okay.
It was actually like spot on. It was used correctly, which was even more frustrating. So, but Danielle, in all seriousness, I really enjoyed the conversation on a couple different areas, but I love that you two dove into the conversation about children's and family music, about how it doesn't get sort of the recognition that it deserves. And it's something that I actually think about quite a bit because I enjoy children's music, but I don't have kids. But like if you talk to anybody who doesn't have kids, or even those who do have kids, about children's music, like you can sort of see them shut down because like their first thought is their first thought is, like Stephanie said, you know, it's Baby Shark, when there's actually some really talented musicians out there. And I think there's almost like two different categories of that. And it's a shame that we aren't able to recognize that a bit. And I think what we really need is like the Bluey revolution for the music industry on the children's side of things. So
because there are artists that are doing, like Danielle and Stephanie were saying, incredible work that is bringing real life experience into their music. It's not just songs about brushing your teeth and dinosaurs, which are important and have their place. And I used with Leo to get him to freaking brush his teeth when we were learning to do that.
Will you send me those dinosaur songs, please?
Dinosaur Stomp is the best.
I absolutely will. But there are artists out there that are bringing real life experiences and helping kids understand what it means to be a person through their music. And those are the artists that Stephanie is talking about that don't get the recognition they deserve, because we do lump all children's music, to your point, Danielle, in the interview, we lump it all together with this very narrow definition of what children and families music is. And it's so much more than that. And if you just listen to a handful of other artists, you would understand that.
Yeah, this is something we talk about here at our office a lot, because we book shows for schools and for kids here. And, you know, so that's sort of the same conversation about children's shows. It's like you get this idea in your mind that it's like, you know, for like the lowest, like really young kids, or it's, you know, really immature or something like that. But there's a lot of really great theater and really great performers out there that are essentially just truncating what they're doing for an adult audience and just highlighting the educational components in that. And I think that that is now what I think of when I think of like youth and family programming. But it's not what most people think about in the children's theater and children's music realm.
And that wasn't a dig at Laurie Berkner or anything, because even as Stephanie mentioned, Laurie Berkner, Dan Zanes, that whole genre of music, I think it goes to their point about how we are at the point where we need to break out into different subgroups within the family market, because it's not that we're saying they're good or bad, and we're not trying to put them up against each other, but that's the problem, is they're all crammed into this tight space. And I think we just need to open it up a bit and be a little more descriptive, because there are so many great and wonderful artists that are just all so different.
And sort of like Danielle was talking about, I mean, it's some of that can almost just be split down to the age of those children, because the stuff you're going to play for your child who's under 3 is very different than you're going to play for your 10 or 12-year-old.
Yeah.
I played Tootsie Roll for all of them.
Which is my favorite children's song.
Yes.
Well, and you really do have subgenres within the children's family music category. And so why can't they be recognized by an organization like the Grammys? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
We do not have enough time in the Grammys award schedule. Just, how long that show's going to be.
It really is all about the commercial viability of their time on the screen for the Grammy Awards.
Yeah, they don't even do the family. They don't even do the children's music on camera.
Yeah, they don't do that on camera. So why can't we have a best children and family song? Why can't we have a best children's hip hop album, a best children's folk album, a best children's jazz album? Like, there are so many artists working in so many genres of music. Why can't they be recognized for excellence within their art form? It just doesn't make any sense.
When I also want to see a youth and family artist nominated in one of those categories that's not designated for children. There's no reason that the age of the people you're making music for should be what is limiting you to a genre of an award. At the same time, it's like the awards don't matter and do matter at the same time, right? There's just so many people that should be recognized that aren't. And I think that's the frustrating part.
Well, and I think alongside that, the conversation that you two had about the gatekeeping around the publicity side of things was really fascinating as well. And just because we do so much work in this field, I have seen kind of the branching out from traditional publicity methods. So like, so many more of our family artists are being featured on podcasts, for instance, and in other media spaces, which I'm so glad to see, because they're reaching people in a different way. But I totally understood what Stephanie was saying about the difficulty of breaking through kind of those barriers. And again, like NPR or Rolling Stone or whomever, all of those readers, all of those listeners are parents too, like, or have a child in their life. Why wouldn't you want to feature content that would appeal to them in a different way?
And I'm really glad Stephanie's here on the front line, because I know that she's not slowing down. I know that she's going to keep asking.
Talking about PR, I remember I did an internship with an ad agency, Maury Mahoney in Denver, and we had to work with a PR agency for a while. And I remember we were complaining back then about how many channels, how things were getting diluted. And, I think about how, like, just using the Tonight Show as an example, Johnny Carson, when he was head of the Tonight Show, was getting a 20 million average viewership share. And now Jimmy Fallon is getting about a 2 million share, and that's considered good. So just that show alone has been diluted by tenfold. And so, you think about how many people aren't even watching, how many people don't have cable, how many people aren't watching things. They're looking at TikTok videos endlessly, or they're on streaming or reading, whatever they're doing. And there's just so many more choices now. I just can't even imagine the world that she's trying to get messages out in a public relations way, because there's just so many places, and you can't spend everywhere. Even if you had $1 billion company, you can't possibly spend millions of dollars every single day. So it's just hats off to people that do that and do it well, like Stephanie does.
Brian, you really highlight a good point there, that is the reason a lot of these musicians and artists and, companies, like you said, need to hire a publicist, need to hire somebody to do that, because there are so many avenues now to have somebody that can help you break through that noise, or to be able to just focus on tracking that down when you're trying to create music is huge.
And you would think there being more options would make it better.
In certain ways, it does. I mean, in certain ways, having the more options allows you to isolate a certain demographic that you need to approach. And if you capitalize on that the right way, which someone in a good PR role knows how to do, like Kevin said, then having that many more avenues really is advantageous because it allows you to narrow your audience to the people that you really want to put it out to.
Also, I really love that Stephanie was so prepared for your last question, Danielle, about what do you know now that you wish you had known then? And the advice that she gave, those 4 pieces of advice, are priceless. I mean, I really am grateful that she shared those with us. And I encourage you to go back and listen again to the end of the interview and write those down and take them with you wherever you go. Because I think this conversation you had just shows that how long our careers really are and how our experiences build on top of each other, and then being able to reflect on that and take away those lessons and use them in your business and your career, I think is incredibly smart of her and incredibly valuable. So thank you to Stephanie for sharing those with us.
Yeah, Katie, I think no matter what part of the industry you work in, remembering things like no is a powerful word and it never hurts to ask and go with your gut are kind of things that we've heard repeated through this. And I feel like for some reason they're hard for us to live with and live by. And so I think like doing this podcast for so long, I've enjoyed hearing how many times people have said things like that and have shared stories where going with your gut worked out. So I just really appreciate Stephanie for, kind of bringing that back up to us again. And also for everything that she does. I mean, she mentions that, her job is to not be seen. I mean, she lifts her artists up. She does a great job at it. I've known her for a while and she's just such a wealth of knowledge. And I want people to know who she is. And that's really why I wanted to interview Stephanie, to lift her up and make sure she gets the credit she deserves for that wonderful work that she does. Well, as always, it's been great. Hope to see you guys next week. Later. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to There's No Business Like. Our producers and hosts are Brian Zelmer, Josh Benson, Kevin Maynard, Katie Miller, and me, Danielle Van Hook. Views expressed in this podcast are ours alone and are not reflective of the organizations we are a part of. Keep up with us at nobusinesslike.com. There you'll find links to all of our episodes and socials. If you like this podcast, give us a like, a follow, a review, or our favorite, a 5-star rating. Oh wait, what was that site? I got it, don't worry. It is nobusinesslike.com. Do I sound out bus-I-ness every time I type it? Yep, sure do. Stay in touch, my friends.
Wow. That's like a Fairfax Tony. We know a Tony winner. Another one.
Okay.
Did you get a plaque? Did you get a Tony?
Well, so I got something better, actually. I got a day off.
Oh, nice.
And
I
a
thought you were
lanyard.
going to say deli tray, and I was like,
Ooh. So you get the same day off every year? That's awesome. Danielle Day.
That was
What's Danielle Day?
great. No, I get one and it expires. But yeah, I'm jazzed about an extra day off.
That would be a great thing. I want to do that for an employee. I want to name a day after an employee, and that means every year they get that day off for them without having to take any PTO.
I love that.
that's a great idea.
Yes.
Brian, will you hire me?
Do it.
I could really use a Kevin day.
Well, you're gonna have to, I didn't say what you have to do to earn the day, though.
I instantly do not want this job.
Okay, gross. Yeah.
Sorry, I went down a Grammy rabbit hole rather than listening to anything that's been said.
That does not surprise
Yeah, Josh,
any of
not
us.
surprising.
Nope. Easily distracted this one.
I think more of this out should not be about the Grammys.
Brian, do you have anything you wanted to say?
So all this talk kind of reminded me of my Grammy back when her and I used to go out for ice cream. And she would get these, she would have the wet wipes. And after I'd have the ice cream, she'd wipe it off my face. So, good memory of mine. Except, though, you ever accidentally taste one of those? Like you get it in your lips or mouth? Ugh, disgusting.
Yeah, see, my grandma just spit on a napkin and then wiped my face. She didn't have a wet wipe. And that tasted nasty.
That is gross.
Cigarettes and French onion dip.
Oh.
What is going on right now?
This Grammy moment was brought.